Wait, do you ever get disappointed when you're showing someone something for the first time and you really want them to get it? And
No,
they
not
don't?
at all. I think
Yes.
Oh.
Matt knew exactly where I was
Absolutely.
going with that question.
I'm clearly an Eeyore.
I'm probably Rue.
I'm a Christopher Robin with a Pooh Rising.
And then I get in a canoe and I'm like, Clairs don't like canoes.
No, they don't.
I'm afraid of this lake.
That's exactly what it was.
Ow.
It was a beautiful moment in our friendship. I was
literally in the middle of getting hers up and down the
Pathetic.
stairs. Ow. I was like, I'm trying to get my hair done. I'm like, God.
I don't think that's an accurate representation of my owl.
Well, you were in such pain you couldn't see clearly. So,
Trauma.
Thank you for listening to the Last Will podcast. I'm Matt Young. I'm a theater educator and a parent. And ever since I lost my father to cancer, I have been mildly obsessed with death. This is my last will and testament. F. Scott Fitzgerald once said, "Our lives are defined by opportunities, even the ones we missed." Today's episode is all about fate versus choice. I'm glad you chose to listen. Enjoy. Today's episode is brought to you by Titanic II. Download it now and prepare to set sail on an unforgettable journey. From none of the creators of the legendary Titanic comes a love story of courage and redemption. Experience the grandeur of the Titanic II, a modern marvel of engineering and opulence. A century after the fateful voyage of the original, modern luxury liner Titanic II sets sail. Will this ship suffer the same fate as her namesake? What do you think? Enjoy the adventures of Hayden Walsh and Amy Main and James Main and Kim Patterson and Kelly Wade. Directed by the great Shane Van Dyke. With quotes like, "Looks like history's repeating itself," and "Hayden, you're going to freeze to death." "I'm going to drown before that." "Okay, then we're going to share. We're going to share the air tank. We can take turns breathing." "No good." "Why?" "I'm going to freeze to death anyway." Don't miss this low-budget tribute to an original classic. Go see Titanic II. It'll be downloaded wherever you get downloads.
Beanie Weenies. They're the, what's the song that goes with
Just
it?
discussing Franks and Beans.
Magic beans for a Ricoso. Old, no, not that one.
That's very, very
Oh,
different.
wait. What's the bean fart, rhyme
Oh,
that
here
you
we
knew
go.
as kids?
Beans, the
Good
more...
for your heart. The
Yep.
more you eat,
the more you fart.
The more you fart, the better you feel. So lift your leg and let one squeal.
What? I've never heard that
Oh,
one.
I think you
I
just
made that up in 6th grade.
Oh,
Although I
look-
can't take credit for it because
He was-
someone else around the world might have come up with that. And I
Parallel thinking. We call that parallel thinking.
I thought that. Oh, that's a good
There's
one.
another
I
one,
always
too.
thought that my girlfriend made up LMFAO.
beans, perfect.
Really?
Yeah, because she told me she came up with a really good one, and then all of a sudden everyone started to use it, and I was like, yeah, that's because she made it up.
She also invented
Wow.
what WTF, which means what the fuck.
No, she didn't make that one up. That one came a little later. J. We're recording because we have a little bit of a time.
I am putting us under a time
We have
crunch
a
for
time
once.
crunch today.
Yeah.
And we didn't discuss what I forgot to ask you guys what our topic is
I
about.
think you were so involved in
Bad boy.
Titanic 2 and processing
Yeah, that was a big
how we're
one.
going to translate that to stage.
I didn't know there was a Titanic 2.
There's not really.
Oh.
Not in history.
Well, there's other big ships, but it wasn't in history.
Let's spoil it for all of the listeners.
There's a movie called Titanic II, and it was produced and released in 2010,
Right.
which was 10 years after Lord of the Rings and the other one, Braveheart. Braveheart came out before Lord of the Rings. But the reason I'm saying this is because the visual effects of
The CGI must have been
Braveheart
great.
and Lord of the Rings and the original Titanic were so good.
Wait a minute. Braveheart for its
For its
visual effects?
I was thinking for like epic proportions and like
Oh,
music
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
feeling and
Grand. It's very
It's very
grand.
grand.
Yes.
Like I watched. I keep wanting to say Brigadoon.
Bridgerton. Oh.
Braveheart on the airplane.
Same thing.
And was very impressed that it was as good as it was. Anyway, Titanic 2 was in 2010, which was
wow.
approximately 2018,
It's fine.
whatever years
Yeah.
after the original Titanic,
Right.
and it's about this people in America who wanted to recreate the Titanic with its original size and everything, and they called it the Titanic II. And their maiden voyage was to go from New York
Right.
to Europe,
London, or
London,
yeah.
yep. And the ship wanted to meet like a deadline of launch. So they kind of didn't pass the safety inspections, which doesn't matter because the ship ends up getting hit by an iceberg on the side.
Right.
Oh.
Because there was a massive glacier.
It's global warming comes into play too.
Global warming comes into play, and a glacier totally breaks off.
And can I just spoil it again? What the captain does?
Can I just say, Titanic II, a century after the faithful voyage of the original, modern luxury liner Titanic II set sail. Will this ship suffer the same fate as her namesake? That's what it says in the in the description. Also, Shane Van Dyke, who played Hayden Walsh,
Oh yeah, he was pretty good actually.
was also the director and writer.
Oh, that makes sense as to why he was also the lead.
He was the lead, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, so global warming takes into effect. A glacier breaks off and creates a North Atlantic wide tsunami.
Now, mind you, I sent an innocuous text about. I was joking. Have you seen Titanic II? Claire jumped on that, starts to watch it, and then for the next 2 hours, there's Claire
Commentary.
quoting the movie. Like, is this really happening? I'm saying, yes, this is happening. Yep, copy that.
Yeah.
I feel embarrassed that I had already seen it.
Oh, it was great. No, I've seen some pretty devastating ship movies. I used to have a friend who was obsessed with this kind of stuff, and she'd recommend the movies to me, and I'd watch them, and they were bad, but they were like funny bad,
This
kind
is
of like
bad.
yeah, it was bad. The visual effects were bad, which is why I bring up the visual
The
effects thing,
acting is
because
great.
at that point in the century, you could make things look really good, and it was like stuff, like
Their budget was $500,000, and most of that was catering.
yeah, the iceberg came.
The iceberg hits, and then he says, "Not again."
And-
Interesting fact
Yeah.
that Shane Van Dyke also gets a story by credit for the movie Don't Worry, Darlings. I'm sorry, Don't Worry, Darling. The
makes a difference.
the whatchamacallit, the film by Olivia Wilde,
Yeah.
starring Florence Pugh and Harry Styles
Really?
and Chris Pine.
That was recent.
That was
Yes, it was
recent.
very recent.
So he's still around. I'm happy for him.
Controversial. He's writing. He's not directing,
He wasn't.
but
as
he's writing.
bad.
He's got some upcoming projects: The Watching, The French Quarter Will Not Be Spared, The Blue Door, Haunted, AWOL.
I wonder what people say to him when
And then
they
there's
meet
Gone
him.
with the Tide, which is the sequel to Gone with the Wind.
He also did a series called Into the Dark and a movie called The Silence. What else did he direct? Let's see.
Well, there is a little bit of a love story in Titanic too, which kind of mirrors the original
Not
story.
again.
Yeah, not again is right. I just think it's so fun. Like the poor ship didn't stand a chance, even though it didn't pass inspection. Like there was this whole conversation on the deck about like, should we stretch her legs? Well, she hasn't been broken in yet, and we don't really know what's going to happen. And then they stall the engines, but it doesn't matter because the iceberg is coming anyway. Because there's a fucking tsunami in the North Atlantic,
tsunami.
which it's not like the wave is the problem. It's the wave that's breaking up all the icebergs. So they just
and
didn't
then the
stand
ice.
a chance.
Oh, yeah.
I know, it's really sad.
Interestingly enough, that brings us to our topic today. That's fate, right? The Titanic II was fated to get hit by an iceberg, we would think, right?
Nice transition.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, nice transition.
I didn't see the movie, but yeah, we were going to talk today.
I think you did see it through the
about-
text. I feel like you.
There was a lot of
you
text
saw
about it.
He didn't read them.
Today, I didn't. There's too many, and I have dyslexia, so I
he
don't
skimmed
read.
them. He didn't miss the.
If
not
somebody
again.
sends me a 20-page letter, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Not again.
So today's topic is fate versus choice, right?
Yes.
And the Titanic II was fated to be hit by that iceberg. So I thought it was
it
a nice.
though? I didn't really get a chance to think about how I feel about fate
Okay.
before I got here.
Well, you're going to get a chance to do it right in front of everybody.
Well, because I don't know if it was
Yay.
fate or was it. I mean, the movie made it seem like it was fate.
Yes, it didn't really happen, so it's whatever the movie makes it. I just also want to point out that it got a 1.7 rating on IMDb out of 10.
Hey, better than nothing.
What a ridiculous excuse for a film is one review. How not to make a movie is another review.
Aw.
Another
The
one.
horror. Somebody actually spent money on this.
Keep going. I love this.
Lots of CGI stuff.
Warning, spoilers. I can't believe I even watched this. Potentially the worst movie ever made. Poor example of any kind of movie. The stuff between the credits was the problem area. Oh, I get what they're saying.
What?
That's clever. That's clever. This is the worst excuse for a movie. Again, I think maybe this person came back. One of the best, worst movies of all time. Although only gave it a 1 out of 10. One of the best, worst movies of all time. That should have got a better.
Yeah,
This has to be one of the best, worst movies of all time.
No.
I have seen better special effects in Boris Karloff films, and that is when Boris Karloff was a young man. Some of the iceberg scenes must have just been shot by somebody in a bathtub jacuzzi, having a few jars.
Quite
I don't
possible.
understand what that means. Oh, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Here we go.
This movie changed my life.
Grady wrote that one.
By
Under
Calhoun-
Aloysius
by
Snodgrass.
Calhoun Dennis. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. No.
I was a lazy boy and had no aspirations, and now I have seen this film. I will probably never leave my couch because I am continuously rewinding the film and playing it over and over again.
That's a lie.
I think
That's
this is-
not. That's
Yeah, I think
somebody
this is
taking the
make-
piss.
yeah.
Rewinding.
I have finally found my purpose in life and will forego all of the silly dreams like
That was somebody
Married,
on the
family, friendship.
on the movie that wrote that.
or just
planted.
a troll. 7 out of 10. This may be more realistic. Hilarious is the title. I know this film wasn't supposed to be funny, but it completely was. The acting, parentheses, appalling. The effects, parentheses, terrible. And the complete lack of general knowledge for the writers or directors made this film a complete laugh riot. One of my favorite examples being a scene involving using a credit card to stop a wound bleeding. Ha ha, smiley face.
Yep.
If you watch this film expecting to something along the lines of a half decent, respectable movie, then you'll be disappointed. Go in ready to take the piss, and you'll have as much fun watching it as I did.
Wow.
Parentheses,
Okay.
especially if you watch it with a friend.
Okay, so I just want to say to
Recommended for all those who like to mock.
all the listeners here, if
Bleeding,
someone
I'm
wants to
bleeding.
watch this,
I've got a driver's
and
license. No, I need
text
a
me
I need a debit
play-by-play,
card. I need a debit card.
let me know. I will gladly be there with
I need
you.
a debit card. That's
Yeah,
a
that was so
license. It's not
crazy.
stopping. I have Apple Pay. No, not your
No
phone. I need a
spoilers, no
debit
spoilers.
card. Help.
Anyway, when
He
I
sticks the credit card into the wound, right?
no spoilers.
Oh wow. Well,
No,
I'm.
you did ruin it for everybody.
So
I was
yeah.
looking forward to that.
Well, then
the-
also it charged him, didn't it? There's
Who
some.
knows?
Yeah,
He-
there was an out-of-state
I don't-
charge, but they
Disputable-
thought it was a fraud. So
Right.
we don't really
called
know what
him up.
happened to him at the end of the movie.
They couldn't get in contact with him because the boat was sinking.
Yeah. So when I used to watch Game of Thrones, there was a guy who would every episode he would write his thoughts on the episode that he just watched, and it was like a play-by-play of his
A stranger
thoughts.
or a friend?
A stranger.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a play-by-play of what he thought after everything that happened, and it was so funny. Like I lived for this stuff. It just helped me process each episode. So that's what I really like to do. Like that's what I was doing with you guys was the play-by-play.
You were
of how I felt.
processing it while
but
you
it was
were
hard.
watching.
Like sometimes I had to stop the show, and then I had to text
You were
something.
asked to be quiet.
Or I was voice texting, and my mom was like, "Can you keep your voice down?" please?"
Was she watching with you?
No.
Oh, she was just
was
randomly in
in the
another
next
room.
You were very alone. Not alone, but
Anyway, back to Fate versus Choice.
Yes, welcome to the Last Will podcast. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Today we're going to talk about fate versus choice. I've been thinking a lot about choice and being chosen and things like that, and so it brought us to this thing. I was really like, oh, should we do an episode on fate or should we do an episode on choice? And I was like, hey, guys, should we do an episode on fate or choice? And Grady was like, oh,
Choice.
fate or choice. That sounds like a great topic. And I was like, oh, yeah, it is one thing, not two, because they're like opposites of each other.
Explain to me, please.
So I was like, we'll do one on choice, right? Or we'll do one on fate. But the way it read, like fate or choice. Like,
I thought
is
that was
this
the actual-
something that is fated to happen, or are you making an active choice? Or what is it called? It's called
destiny.
no, destiny would be fate.
Destine.
No. I'm
choice?
So yeah, making a choice is like the power of
Love.
No, wait.
curious thing.
No. Free will. The
free will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my
The
goodness.
Free Will Podcast.
The Free Will Podcast.
The Free
Welcome
Willy
to the
Podcast.
Free
Free
Will
Will
Podcast.
Podcast.
No, because you have to do whatever I say. The two of you.
I usually
And
do.
what AI does. Don't make that face at
I'm just
me.
gonna sit here and cycle.
pedal. You
It's
can't.
ama- it's
You can't
amazing-
move the mic
It's
closer
amazing
to
what
your
this
pedal.
man
I
will
think.
tell me to do in public on stage, and I'll just walk and go do it. And
I think I
realize-
have to have the four walls of a theater, and then you'll do whatever I say.
Pretty much, yeah. Go sit on that stack of chairs.
Please.
Stack
I'm
of chairs.
I'm usually polite about
All
it.
right, Matt, go ahead. I'm confused still, but
What do you? Oh, so like, it
I
can,
just don't know if I've made the connection between the two yet.
okay. So,
Have
are
you
you? Do you have free will, or is something fated? So free will, we're saying, is choice. You
Oh,
make the
okay.
choice to do something, or was it fated? Did you never really have the choice, and it was always meant to happen?
So I feel like they're both.
Do you
two,
believe in
they're two
fate?
separate schools of thought.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Do you believe in fate? Have you experienced fate?
I don't believe in fate. I believe in something else, but that's irrelevant.
No, it's not, because then what's in place of that?
Let me read the definition, then we'll crack right into the fact that
got
Yeah,
Free
because
will?
AI is
Let's
so
kick
much more
it.
important than what I have to say.
Claire.
Sorry,
It's come-
it's not the morning. I've had some more time to sleep today.
So are you saying we
Give
should?
more
we
time to
should-
rethink
we
doing
should-
this.
Go ahead, Matt.
She's feisty. Should we do it in the afternoons from
Yeah.
now on so that we have
Do the ice-
feisty Claire?
Do the ice bucket.
No,
challenge.
I want people to know what the
Yeah, okay.
the
fine.
simplicity
That's
of
fine.
it
Go ahead.
before we
Just
get into the
stop
complexities of
stalling.
Claire.
Go ahead.
Remember when I talked about replacing her?
No,
I do.
Fate.
Margaret, come on out.
Margaret.
Fate suggests that events are predetermined and inevitable, often guided by a higher power or some form of cosmic plan. Believers in fate argue that everything happens for a reason and that individuals have little to no control over the course of their lives. In some philosophical traditions, fate is seen as a way to make sense of seemingly random events that occur in life. Whereas choice emphasizes the role of free will and personal agency in shaping one's life and determining outcomes. Advocates for choice argue that individuals have the power to make decisions and take actions that influence their future regardless of the external
I'm sorry.
circumstances.
Can I see your phone? Oh, sorry, you're not done.
Choice is often associated with concepts such as responsibility, accountability, and the idea that individuals have the ability to create their own destinies. Ultimately, the debate between fate and choice is complex and multifaceted, and different people may lean more towards one perspective over the other based on their beliefs, experience, and worldview. Some may find a balance between the two, acknowledging that the role of both fate and choice is shaping their lives.
I wish I'd gotten this last night. Wow. Yeah, I have so much.
You
I have
just
so much to
yawned
think
into
of.
the microphone.
No, I didn't.
I watched you.
I did.
You did. You called Margaret a.
I didn't say anything about Margaret.
Oh,
Leave her alone.
Your eyes said it all.
Her name's Peggy, by the way.
Your replacement.
No, that's what people call her. Well, people call Margaret Peggy. It makes her feel like
Eliza and Peggy.
her name is Margaret. Peggy is short for Margaret.
I'm not doing this.
Okay.
So let's.
Grady just walked out.
Anyway, that was chock full
Start
of
again. Start
chock
again.
full of stuff.
Yes.
Chock or block.
Chock
And
full of nuts.
chock
is what
full
it
of
was.
nuts. Little nuggets. That one was.
All right. So you were saying you don't believe in fate.
I believe in a different form. Like fate to me, like when I think of fate, I think of like Greek mythology, and I think of
The fates.
and it feels so already mapped out, and it's like everyone knows it, and it's like you live in a square, right? And I don't feel in the way that I try to live my life is that I do believe that there is a purpose for me, and that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and I'm meant to be, and all the thoughts that I have and the path I've chosen the path I've led has brought me to where I'm supposed to be. I have made choices along the way that have been either mistakes or successes. But I feel like every mistake has been the right mistake. You know, like it's
Yeah.
And so, but
because you're open and aware, and you can take mistakes and find the lesson in it in order to.
And also, you know, and then there are things that
Learn.
happen that aren't mistakes; they're just bad things that happen.
Yes.
And then you learn from it, unfortunately, which is really hard and really difficult and sad. But then there's what I think when I think about fate. If someone were to say, Claire, your life is fated to be XYZ, then I would feel so uncomfortable living the course of my life. But if I don't know that, then
then you're open to the possibility of discovery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just guess that like faith just makes me feel like I'm just a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And a cookie cutout or something, you know?
Faith or fate?
Fate.
Okay.
And it just feels so much more scary of a statement than, Claire, you know, you're whatever is meant to be is meant to be. Like, I do kind of believe that everything happens for a reason. But when I was younger and people would say God has a plan, I always had a hard time with that. But now I take that and I'm a little bit more free with that statement, like God has a plan, because when I'm in a time of confusion or I need to make a decision, like I will trust that whatever the next thing I choose is going to be well derived from my sense of a higher power and my faith in that. Is this making any sense?
Go.
No, it's making a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
think there's a I don't mean to cut you off. Are you?
I'm done. Please
Okay.
make me stop talking.
I think, and maybe we're jumping to the end here, but I think fate is a romantic notion, you know, and sometimes in life we need a little bit of romance, not in a lover's way, but like a little bit of like romantic thinking, like the moon is watching over me, and I can whisper to the moon, and this was meant to happen, and I made this mistake because of this. In designing the script for Titanic II, I'm sure Shane was like, in calling it the Titanic, it has to be fated that it gets hit by an iceberg. The audience is going to expect that to happen. I can't not have icebergs be the cause of why the ship sinks.
So in that sense, he made the choice to make it the fate.
But not in the world of Titanic
No.
2. In the world of Titanic
It
2,
has to be.
it was
It must be.
fated. So it's a fantasy, you know?
Wait a minute. What do you
I just can't believe.
That there's a world.
that we're even talking about? On paper, it doesn't. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, you know, Titanic 1 was so unfortunate, and so the idea is like, of course, if you make another Titanic, it's gonna sink from an iceberg.
Yeah. And the Titanic didn't sink because they said it was unsinkable. It sank because
they didn't go through the safety.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
the original.
But the original. The original did get through all
Why
of
are
those
we-
safety things.
we're
But it
calling
could
it
have
the
happened to any
original.
of those large ships.
Well, they also
What
didn't
happened
have
could
enough
happened to
lifeboats.
any of those large
So
ships.
they didn't.
Yes.
They didn't design it. It wasn't unsinkable. Well, obviously, but they didn't do it right. They didn't design it right, and they didn't have enough lifeboats.
Well, they had more. Here's what I learned: they had more lifeboats than
Yeah, they
any of the other ships
That's
that
'cause
were
they-
sailing.
They had more people.
No, but like no one had.
There was room in those boats.
No one thought that they didn't have enough lifeboats because the standard for lifeboats on big ships like that were a certain percentage, because they really felt like the lifeboat was the huge boat. Like they were created to smash into things.
That's true.
They're-
Okay, here's a question.
Like what really caused it was I guess a lack of imagination. Really,
If you got-
they didn't think that what could happen, but they took tons of safety procedures. You know, but we'd like to think because they wanted it to be grand and that hubris was part of it, that, again, here's a perfect thing, that it was fated to crash. But that's all in hindsight. You know, it could have been any of these big luxury liners.
It could have.
That
I
could
mean,
have happened
it's not
that
like
it
it's
happened to 'em.
unsinkable. Like, you know, a crater comes from above and not a crater. A meteor comes from above and hits it. Of course, it's going to sink. You know, it's obviously the lifeboats have nothing to do with whether it's sinkable or not.
Can we write the script for Titanic 3 where it gets hit by an asteroid?
Way ahead of you.
Always
But
Wait, Grady
yeah,
had to say something like 3 minutes
fade in
ago.
interior.
yeah, pretty much. You are.
It's okay. We're just
You were
recording.
putting out the notion that probably this was going to happen to one of these boats.
It was going to happen to one of these boats.
you think that was fate, that one of these boats was probably going to go down in a way
Yeah,
that
but
it wasn't prepared for, right?
yes, but I don't know that I would. Yeah, I don't. Yes,
So is
So
that fate?
somebody,
Because I need to connect this. It's
I think
fate?
I think it's more statistics than anything. I think
Yes.
that some of these large boats that didn't have enough lifeboats that were, didn't think that they would run into this type of problem, that they had a lack of imagination in terms of like because Titanic was safer than all of the other ships that were going at that time. They weren't lying about that. It just so happens that they made a big mistake.
I mean, sorry.
We've
go ahead.
discussed this before.
And Captain Smith sunk 2 ships right before it. So
Yeah.
He did not.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
did.
did.
He did not have a good track record going in, but it wasn't really his fault either. It was well.
he took
They
that
should have rammed
job.
it right away, like straight ahead. Is what they should have done. That's
And
what the
he
boat
took
was
that
built
job
for,
that they
to ram
hired
it
him.
straight ahead,
Well,
and
they
it didn't.
They thought they would miss it.
Yeah,
When
wasn't standard
I just
procedure.
want to say that there are so many other, we'll say fateful,
Yes,
disasters that have happened in the world. And why do I say fateful?
I don't know.
That's an interesting thing.
when I was
Because it's easier to believe that these huge things are meant to happen. I'm sorry, Grady. Go ahead. Go ahead.
listen, when I was gay bashed in that deli in Brooklyn in 2008,
10?
I believe.
Before
And we
Titanic
talked
2.
about this on the podcast before. I've always felt that those dudes who wanted to kill me, basically, were, if it wasn't me, it would have been someone else. They wanted that to happen. So what I'm trying to say is that was going to happen by their hands to somebody.
So I guess my question.
But was it fate that I was supposed to have my ribs broken and my nose broken and lay in a pool of my own blood in a fucking deli? No, but I was in the right place at the wrong time.
Well, I guess.
But they were going to do that to someone.
Can you
Someone
say
Yeah,
that like
But they made a choice.
they made a
made
choice
the
to do it,
choice.
but they were going to make a choice to do it to someone. So was that my fate, or was I just in the wrong place?
that's why I have a hard time with fate.
Because they were that was gonna happen to somebody.
Yep.
They wanted that. That was it was because it happened so quick. They did it so quickly. It was done and it was so lightning fast. And yet it's something like that changes your whole life, changes the way you think,
Right, and
changes
so-
everything.
Is there like, and something like this I look at, I don't think about the word fate. I think of, has the universe given me something that I can handle? And the reason I say this is because you are sitting across from me right now,
Yes.
and you are one of my most favorite people in the world.
Thank you.
And it's because of everything about you and who you are. And that has to do with some of your experiences, including this one. So some people who experience things like that might not grow from it, or they might not grow in a positive way. They
I
might
see where
grow,
you're going,
they
and
might
I
grow
appreciate
somewhere
you.
else. They could be someone who they might go on to kill
I was
themselves.
about to say would have taken their own lives.
They might go
afterwards, and
on
that
to be
happens
another
often.
aggressor.
Yeah.
They could be in jail. Like they could have made different decisions than you did. And I think about this too. I think about this is when I one of the reasons I kind of am concerned about bringing a person into this life, like having a child, is because I think about the risks of, what that person might do in the face of death, sadness, and fear and mental illness, knowing what I've gone through, knowing what other people I know have gone through, and people who have made choices and tried to better themselves. But then there are people who've made choices and died and killed themselves and overdosed on drugs and decide to become terrorists and are overtaken by cults and the things that I determine to be bad things. And that worries me. Is that their fate, or were those, when fate to me just makes me feel like there's somebody up there, like within a Bacchus.
So in the back of your mind,
keeping
you're like, well, if there's a
track.
higher power that already knows everything that's going to happen in my life and it's already planned out, then what's it worth?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm just asking you.
It's a
both
scary
of you.
thought to me.
I
It
I think what I'm discovering as I'm listening to both of you talk is fate is kind of a context. It can give you an opportunity to look at things that have happened in a way that give you power. It can also take your power, right? Like you're saying, it can have a negative effect. But when we look at things that are tragic, to look at them and go, this was supposed to happen so I could learn this thing is like taking the power back of,
because then it's about the
something.
choices you make after
Yeah.
what happened that was quote unquote was that fated.
Right.
Then what are the choices you make after that? It's like my dad always said, coaching baseball, it's not what happens during the era or why the era happened, what happens after the era.
what do you do with
is
that?
what
Where's
matters.
your perseverance and stuff like that? So really what we've discovered almost halfway through, this will be the shortest episode because we can just wrap this up at this
Awesome.
point because we
Yeah.
figured it out.
So this one's called Fate, Choice, and Titanic 2.
Well, yeah, it's mostly Titanic
I
too.
want them to listen to. I want them to know that we watched and we care.
FCT,
Yes,
FCT
yes. Well,
2.
we can.
FCT2.
I don't know. Let's reach out to Shane Van Dyke and let
Yeah,
him know
let's
And
get
of
that.
course,
on.
That this-
the theme
really-
of Titanic 2, you know.
No, but I think it's interesting that I went into it thinking that it was fate versus choice, but really it's fate and choice together. Looking at it gives you looking at something as something that is fated to have happened to you gives you a choice of how do you react to it afterwards.
They intersect and then they separate, but they do intersect. And in that intersection, you can't really see it. Once you're out of it, and you can go, yeah.
Well, it's not real. It's not realistic, and based upon the definition, if you're looking at fate, it's something that was meant to happen no matter what. Higher powers have convened to make this happen, like in the Greek myths and things like that, like Eurydice and Orpheus. Like Hadestown is the whole idea of Hadestown is that it's always going to happen. We're just going to tell, even though it's sad, we're going to tell it again. We're going to tell it again. Every time it's going to. We may feel it's going to end different, but it's going to be the same. But I think when you take the power of fate back and you use it as a context for things that are really, really difficult in your life, it gives you an opportunity to get to a positive way of looking at whatever the lesson is of something that can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a romanticness to it as well, which I don't think you can.
That's all. Yeah, that's a beautiful side of it too, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's why we love
not be
movies
real,
and
but yeah.
theater and stories and
True love is fated. You're going to find your soulmate. All of that stuff gives us. I mean, other people, not this group, because I can tell the way we all put our heads down and we're like, you know, fuck that idea. No,
Claire,
but
don't
like,
leave.
come back here, Claire.
Margaret.
You keep calling her Margaret. She's going to think
Margaret's
we're too formal.
the replacement lady.
I
No,
know.
Margaret and Peggy are the same person.
I call her Peggy.
I already said I'm not doing this. Okay,
Yes, Robert and Bob are the same names, right?
why are you trying to trap me?
I'm not trying to trap you. I'm trying to get you to be friends with Peggy. All right,
Paggy.
Peggy. I'm having a stroke. Leave me alone.
Me too.
That's not funny, Matt.
Everything's funny. I can make all the cancer jokes that I want. I can make all the stroke jokes that I want. I'm going to do it, and you can't tell me that I'm not allowed to. You don't have to laugh at it. That's your choice. You're not fated to laugh at my humor.
Ooh.
Anyway, say what you were going to say because I have something to say too.
Dismissive.
You were saying
I was saying that
something
there's something about the idea of romanticizing things and fate, giving us faith to continue to move forward when things look the darkest, is what I was going to say. Period. End of sentence. Cue Claire.
The United States has experienced. Sorry, I watched so much Designated Survivor.
Good Lord.
But I was thinking
The United States in
the United
1941.
experienced a massive loss on 9/11, and because I'm thinking about disasters in the world, and this is the one that's
Yes.
closest to us because we're Americans, and
And we're not going to discuss Israel and Gaza, I guess.
No.
we can.
No.
We can.
No, we're
because
not that
I
kind of
thought-
podcast.
I thought about that too, but you know, the one that we're
That's
the most
heavy.
familiar with,
Right.
Because it was the most direct and not as a little bit more confusing. But the act that happened, you know, it's like a group of people made a choice, and then decided that they were going to direct the fate of a lot of people.
Yes, and I guess that goes to the
Yeah.
a different definition of fate, which means their end, right? We talk about
and then
meet your fate.
And there's our perspective of what happened, and then there's their perspective of what happened, because what they were doing was their form of an act of God, and what it was for us was the exact opposite. And so was it those people's fate to die that day based on somebody else's choice?
Yeah. It's a very, very tough one.
Sure is.
To investigate. I would think that a lot of people who lost people have turned to faith and accepted the idea of they lost someone out of fate because it helps them deal with
The loss.
Yeah, something
And the pain.
so difficult to deal with. And I can't, it's not my place to judge that in any way, however they can get through their grief.
Because we talked about the Titanic, and that the Titanic as a ship and as an entity, but there were people who died. And
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
And is it like that? That's why I have a hard time with putting the statement of fate on something like that, because it just seems like it was predetermined, but it could have been avoided. And
Yeah.
if someone
But
came
we
up to
can't-
me and
but
said,
we can't know that unless
no.
it happens.
If
and,
someone came up
we
to me and
can't
said,
know.
"It's Claire, we met because of fate," I would walk away from them. I wouldn't. I would be.
How do you know?
Don't give her the card that we got her. And throw it out.
I
throw out that
would
card.
be more open to if someone said, "I think there was a reason that you and I met."
Or people come into your life at certain times when you need that, but
and they leave for a reason.
Yes.
Or they leave for their reason, and then that teaches me a lesson, and it means something. And yes, that I get on board with. But when you say the word fate, it means something different to me.
It's almost I kind of get that way with religion too. Like when someone says, "Oh, God intervened," or "Let's pray," or something like that, I do shut that down in my brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
And why is that?
um
Because is it someone else's view of what that is, and it doesn't necessarily agree with yours? Because that's how I feel about fate.
I think so, and I guess when they bring it up, it feels pointed, like they're trying to put it on me, and so I think I reject that. I think I move away from that.
Yes, when someone forces their religious views on me, I shy away, and I put up a wall.
Yeah.
And if someone, and sometimes fate and religion can be one and the same. Sometimes
Well, fate and faith, and they're all.
So then, where
they're
does
all tied in.
coincidence come into play? Although I don't.
According to Doctor Who,
I don't really believe.
it brings the goblins.
I don't believe in coincidence, really.
No, the more coincidence you have, the more appetizing you become to goblins. That's what I learned from Doctor Who last night.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Seriously, and what do goblins do? They gobble you up.
All
That's why
right,
they're called
so
goblins.
let's not.
But now Rose is gone. Billie Piper,
Yes,
who is greatly loved on that show.
yeah, but
I think
that was like 10 years ago. That was at
I
the
kn-
same time. She could have been auditioning for Titanic II and Doctor Who at the same time, because that's when they
you
were.
sick son of a! How dare you put her
just
on?
saying.
She's not riding the Titanic
Okay,
too.
let's
I'm just
calm
saying
down.
it was the same time. Yeah, don't get.
I liked
mixed up.
Titanic 4 the best. That's just about a jet ski, but it doesn't matter.
It was the biggest jet ski there was.
It
was.
was.
It's a
It,
Titanic
it held a
tattoo.
family of 12 and had one of the bananas on the back, and it ran into I think the side of a Marshalls.
Maybe right here under my armpit is where I'll get a picture of the Titanic. What do you
Are you,
think?
are you
You
joking?
getting you like a
no,
a-
Cliff.
the-
No,
just
a tattoo?
no.
Just the Titanic
Are you
one.
getting a tattoo of that Titanic?
I don't know. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Have it sinking into your armpit?
Oh, is it
No.
breaking?
No, it's full.
Oh, it's full. It's faded.
It-
It's eventually faded to.
All right, fine. Never mind. I'm not going to do
I
that.
just said that to you.
Matt is showing Grady
love
something
this
that he sent him, and I can't see it. What is that? Oh, is that Billie Piper?
Yes.
I don't know.
So
Grady's
pretty.
obsessed with this woman I've never seen before.
She had a little crush on Paul Rudd. Anyways, so what about choice? Choice is something that people avoid more than. I mean, we're not talking about like a woman's right to choose, which is fucking should be the law. Let's just say that. We are not a
Yes.
podcast that is on the fence about that. A woman's choice should be the law.
Mm-hmm.
Choice in general, people,
Shy away from it a
Yeah.
lot, don't they?
because they don't want to deal with the consequences of making that choice, so they let whatever happens happen, and then they deal with the consequences of that afterwards. Is that fate?
I was about to say, is that your fate?
Ooh.
Have you created
just
then
feels
your own
passive.
fate?
Have
Yeah.
you created your own fate based on the choice that you made?
Or is not making a choice a choice?
Is not making.
Yeah.
Yes,
no.
it is. It is. Grady, what's that in your hand?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
You got a book. Why don't you use it?
I've thought
Just
of
say
all
the
the.
line right.
I made the line. I can have it
Hey,
evolve.
you got a
any way
book
I
over
want.
there. Why don't you help me out a little bit?
There's.
I think I judged it a little bit. Okay, so that wasn't right.
Choices that have been to not make a choice, like
Have
you know,
ever made a choice to microwave something and it went bad?
yeah. Well,
Matt,
that
back
was.
to you in the
I don't know
studio.
if that was a choice. That was just stupidity.
That is not. That could happen. That could have happened to anyone, but it happened to Matt.
I will say that they still tease me at school for it.
Oh.
I did almost
They
burn the
call him
school down.
Smokey.
They did. Well, they say, my tea still smells like burnt mac and cheese. I forgot to put, did I mention this on the podcast? I forgot to put water in my microwave macaroni and cheese for lunch. And I was like, man, I got like 3 minutes. I'll go away and come back. And when I came back, the place was full of smoke and
I
stinking.
cannot believe that caused that much smoke.
It caused a ton of smoke. It stunk so bad. It goes to show that there is, in that resource room, our tech room, there are no fire
Fire
alarms.
Extinguishers.
No, there. Well,
no
maybe
fire
there are no
alarms.
fire alarms for
that's
sure,
really
because it
bad.
definitely would have. And that's like right next to the library. It smelled
With
upstairs.
all the books that could just burn the fuck up.
Oh yeah. It smelled upstairs. One of my students came in and was like, "What happened?" And I told them the whole story. I was like, "Look, I was stupid," and he's like, "No, why didn't we have class today?" I was like, sorry.
I microwaved something when I was high once because I wanted to put. I cut up some Reese's, or it was some chocolate, and I wanted to melt it to then dip strawberries into. And
Double boiler.
yeah, that wasn't.
No,
it
microwave
was like
is-
the middle of summer, and I was high off my ass.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
no, it was the microwave. So I smoked it. I was actually doing a time lapse of my adventure, and then the time lapse ended when the smoke came out of the microwave.
Oh yeah, chocolate in the microwave is not a good way to go. So we know bad choices. It's not a good choice to microwave recklessly.
On drugs.
Yes. So what are some of the big choices that you never made? I know a lot of people. I don't think I'm guilty of this, but other people would let me know of not ending a relationship when I knew it was over and just letting time do it, like not making the choice to communicate.
I think we've all been guilty of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I've
I
done.
think probably
Yeah.
every human is guilty of that.
I've also
Not
not.
necessarily guilty, but every human has
Yeah, I've also decided to not
made
not
that
date
choice.
someone because of fear. Could have gone well. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
was
yeah.
too scared, and that's something I didn't know at the time. Like I just went with what was. I think I'd prayed at the time about the best decision to make, and at the time the best decision was to not go forward with it or something.
Right.
Was there some criteria that gave you the strength to not go forward with it? I mean, was there a red flag? Or?
There was. I remember that there were guys like my friends in high school that I became close with, and I flirted with, and I flirted and flirted and flirted, and then when they kind of finally reciprocated the feelings, I panicked.
Yeah, but you were
And
also young.
I was like,
I mean,
in
that's
high school,
different.
But looking back on it, like it would have been really great to date them.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
thinking of one person in particular who
What's
who
his
ended
name?
up. I can't tell
Margaret.
you. He,
Margaret, he's here. Come here, Margaret.
who ended up being a really good friend of mine, and I
right
just
there, I'm
he was
flashing.
very just close with me in the beginning of college and got me through a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I blew it, and I don't know. At the time, it was right, but I look back on it and I'm like, that would have been fun. So, but there's all this other stuff that happened in between. I think one of the things I regret the most, and I wish that I was stronger when I was younger to make more of a decision to pursue acting and singing and mostly
Yeah.
musical education personally, so that I could be like a strong musician today, write music and stuff.
But you were getting pressure to not do that, right?
I was very musically inclined when I was young, like
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
was like 12, in middle school.
You weren't being encouraged to take that route, I guess.
I actually just liked it. Like I played the French horn. I was really good at it. I was
Best.
taking the piano. I was taking guitar lessons. I taught
I've
myself
heard
the
about your
flute.
French horn around here.
Like
It's the best Star Wars instrument. I'm just saying.
and then in high school I was mostly excited about singing in musical theater. So the band in high school was too intense for me. It wasn't something I wanted to partake in. So I dropped
they
the
get
musical
serious about that.
instruments and today I have an urge today to write music and I just don't know where to begin. So I'm a little bit stuck.
Well, I think you lyrics, also like you could find. Well, I encourage you to do it, Claire. I encourage you to do it.
I second that.
Make that choice.
Okay.
I would probably struggle with what you were saying, and just in terms of like if I could have dated somebody and I put it off, and I would wonder if that was my fate, if I ruined my fate by making a choice to not date that person. Like that would be me. That would be the torture that I would put myself through. Was this person the love of my life? Did I miss the opportunity to have?
Yeah. I think about that a lot.
Yeah, a good bit of self-analysis there. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
So is that fate? Do we have that type of fate in our lives that we can? Well, I guess it's not fate if it doesn't work itself out, if it doesn't happen.
Well, how about the people that we long for
Yes.
that it doesn't work out for? Like people were like, oh, I really...
Every girl I've ever been interested
So there's that too. It's like we almost want to create our own fate in that regard.
Yes.
And we're like, this is right. I know it's right. This is what I want.
And yet, on the other side of that, which kind of brought me to this whole idea, is choice. I saw this I don't know, TED Talk or something about that, and the guy said, you are mourning the loss of this relationship, but it couldn't have been the love of your life because this person didn't choose you. And if this person doesn't choose you, then it could never have been the love of your life. And it may be hard and it may be difficult and you may have trouble getting over it, but like you can't call it the love of your life.
I don't know.
If that person does, I don't know the words that he used, but like without being chosen, it doesn't have the chance to be your soulmate or whatever.
I don't believe that person is not the love of your life.
Okay.
But because there are people that I feel very strong compatibility with that I am not dating, and I'm sad that I'm not. It's two people and I can't date both of them. So or at the same time. So, but
we can Frankenstein this guy together. Or we can. You tell us which part you want where.
Margaret M. Peggy.
Their choices have been to do, to not be with Claire. So
are they choosing other people, or and do they know that you?
It's a complicated.
Okay.
It's complicated for both of them. It's a little bit of a different.
Like they say in Titanic II.
Not again. Oh yes. So
and yeah, we know how that ends.
So I actually recently said this to a friend. I was like, until I find the next love of my life, I don't want to hear about this person. I don't want to know where they are or what they're doing, if they're dating.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that, I was like, that's so silly. Like, who's the love of my life, and why do I feel like there's more than one of that person out there?
I kind of believe you have more than one soulmate.
Yeah, I think so too. And because I feel like
many.
Just because it didn't work out for you and that person doesn't mean that it that's maybe for them it meant something different. Like, I really like this person. I think that we're super compatible. I could see a future with them. And that's because they fit certain criteria that I would like. But if it wasn't meant to be for them to be with me, so I can't put that square peg in a round hole. That's not my decision. I mean, I can't do it. I could choose to, but then it might not be the right thing. And the right thing for me, at least, or let's say if it's the wrong thing, I find out. and I find out really hard. Like usually my body will be the first to tell me. Like it gets this like gut feeling that's like sends like stress hormones from like my head to my toes.
Right.
And it's like, this is wrong. Get out now. And that's...
And there's a choice.
And then I have to make a choice, and the choice is very clear as to what the answer is.
I really thought for a second you were saying that you were having that reaction when you feel that love of your life thing.
No.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. And then it turned as I listened to the end of the story.
No. The those feelings are much more elated.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think you can have the love of your life can be somebody that doesn't necessarily reciprocate feelings to you.
I don't know if, like, I was listening to you and I was agreeing, and then I think at the end I think all things are probably possible, which are you could have the love of your life and it not be reciprocated, and also that's a good sign that they're not the love of your life. Like I was like, because I was thinking like I really believe that the love of I will never be with the love of my life. Like I just, more times than not it will.
Life seems so finite. Life. What is the love of your life?
Is it your life
The love of
right
your-
now?
what is the love of your life for in the moment. In the moment.
But
Yeah.
but then phrase it different. The love of your life is your life.
The love of this quarter.
Yes.
The love of this decade.
marking period. But if I think of like my great love, my soulmate, all of that stuff, I think it'll just always be unreciprocated.
No,
I get that, but like there's no real data that says differently, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope
And what
I'm
you
wrong.
may not know,
and
and-
I don't, and I maybe I don't. I always assumed that I already knew who she was, even though I didn't know that she was that person to me. But maybe she's somebody I don't know.
And you may have been that person and may still be that person to someone, and you will never know it.
you could be that
That's
person
not- that's
to
not
somebody
true.
else.
That's
yes,
not
it is.
true.
Oh,
No,
hell
you
no.
can't-
That's not what this podcast is about.
No.
It's not about
Just-
surrendering
Yeah, it's
to...
like- and just saying hell no and like deliver.
Hell no.
Anyway,
No.
I think also that
You wrote a naughty book
this-
about you.
I think
Write a
the
naughty book
term
about
love
you.
of your life, like if you were to plug
It's
that
a-
into
it's
AI,
silly,
it's
yeah.
such a cliche
Yeah, it's
statement.
silly. It's silly.
And you could call it anything you want. I'll take that out and I'll twist it into something. You could write a poem about it and make a song and be like, that's this person and that was this person
True.
at that point
True.
of my life. And I had somebody I loved so much when I was traveling in my early 20s, and I loved him so much. And like and it wasn't like butterflies head over heels. It was just
Real
it
love.
made complete sense.
Yeah.
And it fell apart. And it was really sad, but it falling apart actually made sense too. And I think about him a lot, and I think about that. I actually don't think today we would be compatible. I think he's actually married now, but
That would make it very difficult.
I think about the compatibility and the joy that I had being with this person all the time.
How long was that relationship? Did it
It was
last?
short lived. It was only a couple months, because then we were long distance for about 8 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and he was like, but I'm always going to be traveling. And I'm like, I want to be there with you. Like, I was dead set on being by his side. And there was an understanding between us I felt like he understood me, and I think I understood him. And there was a joy that we had for being together.
Yeah.
But then it kind of turned into, I felt like I was 80 years old. Like, not like my body felt like that, but I was like, we're just kind of existing together, and there's no excitement and there is no butterflies. Like, I kind of wanted that.
And no growth, I'm assuming.
It didn't feel like there was any growth.
Yeah.
So,
And like those are beautiful like moments to have, in the sense of like you have this deep, rich love, and maybe the heat didn't last very long, but that you had it, and
Moments in the woods.
and it makes sense, when it shifts. But like there's nothing wrong with thinking back to that moment, and that I say heat, but I don't mean like in a sexual way, but I mean the heat of a relationship just being when it's at its like finest. And that's kind of I don't know, it's kind of a cool thing. I just don't think back on yeah, I'm not going to say any of the things that I was going to say.
Well, anyway,
I'm not going to say that stuff. It's not fair to people.
Back to Fate.
that.
You know, I do look back on those times, and I think they were absolutely necessary. The pain, the love, and then the pain of it ending were so important for my growth.
So you're thankful for those times.
I am, and
Good.
because listen, like at that moment, like when I was totally devastated that we were breaking up, you know, people were like, "Claire, there's plenty of fish in the sea," and I'm like, "Fuck off! You don't know me. You don't
know the sea.
You don't know the sea." That
you said ocean, that'd be different, but sea, come on.
so
Limited resources.
but they weren't wrong because your body heals, and then eventually you do find someone else when it's right for you. And I was like, oh,
So wait, so then if you're saying when it's right, then what does that mean? Is that's when fate comes in?
well, then that's when
So
I
what does
think
that
like
mean when
was
it's
someone
right?
else put in my direction on purpose.
I'm not challenging.
No, I know you're right.
There's
It's we didn't answer the question today.
But I don't think there is an answer to this question.
What is the question?
To be or not to be.
I don't think there is an answer to this question, but I think that there's a sustainability with the conversation that just will always continue. This is an unanswerable question.
Yeah, because it's all about
You
perspective.
can't-
It's all about
you
context.
can't know.
No.
You just can believe
can't.
what you want to, what you
Yes.
would choose to believe,
Yes.
and that's what
For
you
sure.
can do.
I know for myself, I use the romanticism of fate. It helps me deal with pain or like the ache inside me often. I like to think I've made some really, really bad choices that have taught me a lot of stuff about myself.
Amen. I hear that.
But I also like long to be chosen. You know, I don't feel chosen or desired.
What if
and
you-
they feel like on the same lane?
What if you were told that you were going to be somebody else's fate?
Like I was going to strangle him?
No.
Oh,
No, fate doesn't always end in death.
no, you're right, but sometimes it does.
What if you this is a great movie plot or a show plot or something like
Titanic 3,
Titanic 3. That
written.
you are
4.
told that you are this person's fate and you have to follow certain steps.
Would I take that adventure?
You have no choice.
Oh, but you're also saying you have to take these certain steps.
So like you are this person's fate, meaning like this person is destined to fall in love with you.
Yes.
And you have to be in a certain place at a certain time to make this happen.
Yes.
Or like, you know, we'll take all your money or
Would I
something.
take that gamble? Would I go to that place? to find
I
out?
haven't thought this through yet, but I've got to work on it. No, I guess.
Well, it's like fate and choice. You're putting fate. You're writing a good fate and choice movie right now. You know, if you knew, if
Can you
somebody told
can
you're
you
gonna be,
can you mute this part of the podcast? I don't want anyone to take my idea.
Oh, don't take Claire's idea.
It's called sliding doors.
It is a little sliding doors. It is a little sliding
I
doors.
guess.
So
I
maybe
guess,
get some money from that ski accident.
Well,
If
let me-
if I knew I was somebody's fate,
Yeah, like
would I go? Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I would.
but it's not the best thing for you,
Have you met me?
Matt. I don't like the self-sabotage version of you.
I know you don't, but like the self-sabotage version and like the realistic version
Is
are,
comforting
like,
to you?
it's not comforting to me. I am willing more than not to make sacrifices.
Okay, here's the pretense.
of my happiness and good for people I care about.
Okay, so there's a woman in the lake,
In the woods, I
and
think
her
it was.
and her son with her son on a boat, and the son drowns, and she goes in to rescue the son, and she can't save him, but you're there watching it, and then you help her,
Yeah.
and then from that moment, she
Tries
is
to sue
bound to you.
Oh,
What were you gonna say?
tries to sue him. I don't know.
No, because you're there to help her,
Yeah.
and then she's bound to you because of that moment that you were there for her.
Yeah.
You don't like this story because you were told ahead of time, but you have to go because you have to witness this.
But that doesn't, being bound to someone by an act of bravery or kindness, is that a relationship?
Is it possible?
We're not
for-
talking about a relationship. We're just talking about faith.
Is
Just
it
fate.
possible for
Sorry.
me to? I would, if I was told this, I would want to go there to try to save the kid.
No, but you can't. It's fate. We're talking about faith. Fate. It's predetermined.
I would have to let her know right away.
But you can't because you lost your voice in that moment.
Forever?
In that moment. Or you weren't there. You tried to
Oh,
get
it
there
would-
at the right time,
it
and
would-
you missed it.
It would destroy me.
Okay.
It would absolutely destroy me to know that I have this information that I couldn't share with her. I couldn't deal with that over my head. I would have to tell her right away, and that would destroy.
Okay. It's the plot's thickening. I'm getting there. I get it.
And there are no doors, and they don't slide, Grady.
No, it's just like a screen.
No, but it is like really interesting storytelling. So I think we can admit that Fate and Choice makes really good story gimmicks. No, story.
Yeah, well, we've already gotten it. It's Final Destination. There's like 5 of them.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You know, and you can save people, but they're still gonna die. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, thank you. That was a really interesting conversation at the
You're
beginning.
welcome, actually.
At
Yeah,
the
you're
beginning.
welcome.
We started off in a place that was a little bit grumps. You know,
No,
we were like,
we weren't grumps.
no, you don't think so?
Was I grumps?
A little bit.
Oh.
You were like, I wish I knew this topic earlier.
Oh. I did know the topic earlier, but it's been a really lazy week for me. I've just
Oh.
been like watching TV
Nice.
and organizing my clothes and
Well, I'll tell you about my week when we get off the air.
Yeah, that's for later.
okay.
It's much different.
Okay.
Well, I choose to end this.
You choose to?
And
All right.
your what?
He's choosing to end this.
Oh, okay.
Don't push too hard.
So soft.
No. Barely got any of that. Is your anus asking a question?
It's got a fissure.
Oh! Why?
So gross. Oh.
Go
Just end it, Matt.
use the bidet. Why on earth would we end our podcast like that? I don't have any clue. I let him go sometimes, and I just shouldn't let him go. And probably the phrase "let him go" isn't appropriate for this one, but we shouldn't end that way. So what did we learn? I think we learned that fate versus choice isn't really one against the other, that sometimes fate can lead to having choice. They're not pinned against each other, and fate kind of works in a way of giving things context after they happened. That's where it can be most useful, but if you're just waiting on fate to take care of everything, then you're going to be waiting a long time. I think that's really what we learned. Anyways, thank you for listening to the Last Will podcast. If you like what you heard, rate, review, and subscribe. We can be reached at thelastwillpodcast.com and The Last Will Podcast on Instagram. So if you got something to tell us, please slip into our DMs. It will make us feel very good about ourselves. Till next week, onward, forward,